All right, so for lab on Thursday, we're going to be doing something pretty neat. We're going to be shifting gears quite a bit and moving on to Earth systems, which is basically Earth science, which is probably something we haven't had in a very long time, maybe since middle school. So why Earth science? Well, Earth's soil and Earth's mineral resources are important for the quality of our life. And many of these mineral resources, such as the minerals that we mine to make electronics like the laptop that I am doing this video on, or your smartphones and all that good stuff, many of these minerals are non-renewable resources, and how we get them can have dramatic impacts on the environment. Additionally, if we talk about soil, well, soil can be easily degraded, and if we have too much soil degradation, this can reduce our ability to produce food, which is a pretty big deal. So, many biotic components of an ecosystem can live because of soil. Thus, soil degradation can have many negative impacts on these systems. Not only that, but like I said, the food that we eat depends on proper soil management. So the goal of this lab is to learn some of the basic characteristics of soil and how they affect plant growth with a focus on food crops. So a little bit about soil in general first. Think of soil as linking the abiotic rock cycles to the biosphere, the living biosphere. So soil is a mix of abiotic, sort of this geologic parent material and organic decomposition that kind of comes together. And it forms a sort of membrane that allows the transfer of nutrients and water to plants and other organisms. So what does soil do? Well, it filters water, number one. Number two, it's a medium for plant growth. Number three, it breaks down organic material and it recycles nutrients. Number four, it's a habitat for many different organisms. So now you might be thinking to yourself, well, Mr. Gray, that's great, but how does soil form? And there's one factor that is sort of the most necessary component of soil formation, and that one factor is time. Soil takes hundreds of thousands of years to form. And when you think of how soil forms, think of it in sort of two ways. The first way is from the bottom. There is a layer of rock called parent material that slowly over time starts to break down or it gets weathered. So we got weathering parent material from the bottom, and as it weathers and breaks apart, it can kind of move up towards the surface. Now couple that with the decomposition of organic matter from above. So leaves fall, a deer dies, things start to decompose, and we get this sort of membrane, this sort of mixture between this decomposing organic material and this sort of inorganic soil parent rock material. They come together and they mix and they form soil. Now, soil formation is also affected by factors such as climate, topography, soil organisms, and time. These all affect soil formation, and since these factors are different around different parts of the earth, then we have different types of soil from all over the earth. So we're going to look at three different soils and try to understand the physical properties of these different soils and how these different physical properties may affect plant growth. So the first thing we're going to look at is soil texture. Soil texture is the percentage of sand, silt, and clay particles within a soil. So think of soil being made up of these three particles. The sand particle is the largest particle. It's between 0.05 millimeters and 2 millimeters. The silt particle is between 0.002 millimeters and 0.05 millimeters. That's the medium-sized soil particle. And the smallest soil particle is clay. It's less than 0.002 millimeters in diameter. So big is the sand, medium is silt, and the smallest particle is clay. Now, who cares about soil texture? What can that tell us? Well, one, soil texture can tell us how well the soil can hold water and nutrients. If the soil is made up of a bunch of really small clay particles, well, then water might not be able to flow through it very well, and so that soil can hold too much water and mess with the cellular respiration of plants and, in a sense, drown the plants. But if a soil is made up of too much sand, well, then that water can drain the soil too quickly, too fast for roots of plants to sort of pick up water and nutrients. So we kind of want to balance in between that. Now, another thing that soil texture can tell us is how easily roots can penetrate through different soils. If you try to grow a crop that has kind of weak roots that can't penetrate through hard soil, well then that might not be a good thing. And last but not least, this one's a little more complicated, but the amount of clay in soil uh, is very important because clay tends to have a negative charge to it. And these negative charged clay particles can attract positive ions, or what we call cations. And such cations as ammonium, if you remember from the nitrogen cycle, ammonium contains nitrogen in a way that plants can take up and absorb. Now, another essential plant nutrient is potassium, and that is also exists as a positive cation, which can be held by clay particles. But like we said, too much clay can drown the soil, so there has to be this sort of healthy balance of all these different things in order for soils to be the most productive. So, part one, you're going to be determining the texture of your soil in two different ways. The first way is going to be done for you. I have 25 millimeters of, I'm going to have 25 millimeters of each of the soil samples in the graduated cylinder. I'm going to pour 75 millimeters of water in there. I'm going to take it, I'm going to tilt it upside down, back and forth, mix it all up, and then let it sit. Now, once it starts to sit, the heavy particles are going to settle first, and the lightest particles are going to settle last. So, if you remember about the different size soil particles, the largest particles also happen to be the heaviest particles. This is sand. So sand will settle down first, followed by a layer of silt, and then followed by a layer of clay. And we'll actually see three distinct layers of sand, silt, and clay, and we can determine the percentage of each. After we determine the percentage of each of the types of soil particles, we can use what's called the soil texture triangle, and we can plot out what percent sand, silt, and clay is on the soil texture triangle and figure out what type of soil we have, which is pretty neat. The next way we're going to determine soil texture is by feel, and this is the part that you get to do, and this is probably one of my favorites. You have a soil texture by feel flow chart, and that flow chart, what you're going to do is you're going to get some soil, you're going to kind of ball it up, you're going to wet it, and you're going to make ribbons out of it and try to make it into, try to smooth it out into a ribbon. You're going to feel it, and based on feel, you can answer the questions of the flow chart and try to determine the texture that way. So two different ways to determine soil texture. And we're going to see if your soil texture by feel and your soil texture by the settling out process to see if they kind of match up. You'll answer some questions about those, and then we're going to move on to part two of the lab. And part two of the lab is going to test the porosity of the soil, or how easily water can move through the soil. Now, like I said, if it moves too fast, then the roots can't grab any moisture. If it moves too slowly, well, then the soil can become waterlogged, which is not good either. So for this, you're going to get a cup with a bunch of holes in it, just like this. See all the holes in the cup? And you're going to get a soil sample. I'm going to get this soil sample right here. And you're going to fill it up to about 2 centimeters worth of soil. So not too much, not too little, about 2 centimeters worth. So here's my trusty ruler. I'm going to set it down here. I'm going to measure. And it looks like it's kind of at a slant, so you just kind of have to kind of eyeball it a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit more in there. And yes, you will be getting a little bit dirty with this lab. That's okay. It's just soil. A little dirt don't hurt. That's what my mom always said. All right, let's check that out. Yep, that's looking about right. And then, so once you have about 2 centimeters worth of soil, you're going to get some water. You can fill up this graduated cylinder with about you're going to fill it with 50 milliliters of water. So careful. All right. Ta-da! And then, this is where you're going to need you and your partner's help. What you're going to do is you're going to take this cup, put it over this large beaker, and then you're going to, all simultaneously, you're going to go 1, 2, 3. You're going to pour the water all at once, and you're going to time a minute. And what's going to happen is the water's going to go through the soil and through the holes, and you're going to see how fast that happens. So I can't do that all at once, but I'm going to try my best because I'm a professional. So let me stop, reset. All right, so ready on your mark. Get set, go. Woo! All right, there it goes. It's already draining. All right. And you can see it's starting to drain pretty quickly. So if it's draining pretty quickly, you might think, well, man, there might be a lot of, I don't know, sand in this soil. If it's not draining quickly, you might say, oh, I don't know, there might be a lot of clay in this soil. All right, so wait for a minute. You can hang out with me for a minute. So y'all seen The Walking Dead? It's one of my favorite shows. I like the third season, I think, a little bit better than this season. But, you know, that's okay. I won't ruin it with any spoilers. But I saw one thing on the internet that said, well, what if The Walking Dead was just all a dream inside of Rick's head while he's in his coma? And then at the end of the whole series, he kind of wakes up and realizes it was all just a dream. I would be very angry if that happened. All right. So we got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. All right. And then be smarter than me. You'll take your cup without holes, take your cup with holes, put it in the top so it doesn't drip all over the place. And you are then going to measure how much water went through the soil. You simply take this. So this was soil sample, this was for me, this was soil sample 2. So it's going to be labeled for you. Soil sample 2 drained about, let's take a look. It looks like about 15, 16, 17, about 18 from the 50 milliliters that I poured in there, about 18 milliliters of it went through the soil. All right, and I'll record that on my data chart. You'll do that for all 3 soil samples. You'll answer some questions, and then you will be done with the lab. A couple of things about this lab. It is a little bit dirty. That's okay, but try not to get a bunch of dirt in the sink because it clogs it up, and then the maintenance guys get really mad at me, so please don't do that. And number 2, try to have fun with it. This is a neat part of the curriculum. That's the part that I really liked, and as you can see, my hands are all dirty, and that's what makes it kind of fun. So good luck. This lab is due on the 15th, right, which is a Friday, not this Friday, but next Friday, so you have a little more than a week to do the lab write-up. Make sure you look at the syllabus for the lab write-up, and let me know if you have any questions. Have fun.